morning, good afternoon, whatever time of day it is that you are listening, folks. Thank you very, very much for listening. Today is the 1st of March, year of our Lord 2024. Welcome to yet another edition of the Coping Hour, hosted by Nicholas Hinkle, a.k.a. Motown Noah. Recording this one a few days early, depending on what day, if you're listening to this on the day that it comes out on Friday. In the process of moving right now, actually going to be using movers for the first time in our lives, which is very exciting. That I'm like done. I've officially eclipsed the part of my life where I'm not going to be moving myself. And if you ask me to move, nope. That's not my job anymore. Because it's not worth the like week of just being pissed at how sore I am. You know, just for, and I love it. Like, I love it. I love when you're done moving and you get some pizza, you crack open some beers, some Mountain Dews. Like, I love it, right? But last summer, my brother moved to Chicago, and he was like, yeah, it'll just take us like an hour or two to knock it out, because he was moving into a studio, and I was like, I don't know if that's true. It wasn't true. It wasn't true. And it was, I get home, and my girlfriend was like, how did it go? And I was just furious, because it's not fun, and it's not supposed to be fun, but it's just not fun at all when it's just two dudes going in and out of a U-Haul, and it's just takes so long. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. Like, I'm just not. And finally at a point where it's like, yeah, we can, you know, like, hey, what's the estimate? Can we get a quote? And then I didn't realize how, I kind of just thought you just said, hey, we need movers. And then they come and they're just like, all right, yeah, we'll move a bunch of stuff. No, you got to get like boxes down to the number. You got to like itemize everything, give them an inventory. All makes sense. But I'm, hey, very excited that for the first time in our lives, we are not going to be the ones who are moving. We kind of just like let them inside. They load it all up. We drive them, well, not drive them down to, what am I talking about? Let's get into today's show. We got some stuff to talk about today. Let's talk about the Pistons. I have been very vocal that I'm not giving this team my time. I'm not giving this team my attention. I'm not going to watch them until Monty Williams is fired. And I am actually going to stay pretty firm on that. I do think it's interesting that now it's not only the national guys who are starting to say, what the hell is going on in Detroit with Monty Williams? Is he trying to get fired? Because if you ask Pistons fans this like 3 months ago, 2 weeks into the season, they were already hypothesizing that this was reality, that Monty Williams was advertently trying to get fired. A check collector at his finest. Now, I don't want to veer credit to those people, because when you're only 2 weeks into the season, yes, you ended up being right about it, but it wasn't based on anything that was real. You still have to let these things breathe a little bit. And I would say the same thing, even looking back on it now as I did then, which is you're an idiot and you need to relax. But now that we've sort of gathered some more information, we've been able to watch like 50 some odd games of how he coaches this team. I don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility that he is like just completely throwing, and that he realized that this is not what he wants to do, and that he wants to spend more time with his family, which he should. He's gone through something horrible with his wife in the last year. I believe she's okay now, which is great, but still, like, maybe he was just like, hey, I don't, this isn't really my job. I do think it's corny to even speculate that, because at the end of the day, what if he's just trying his best? That would suck, right? If everybody in America is like, this guy sucks, and I think he's purposely trying to get fired, and you're just like, I'm trying my best. But I don't think you can say that you're trying your best when you keep wheeling out this all-bench lineup. It never works. It hasn't worked. We don't have the facilities for that, big man. We don't have the guys on the roster to get away with an all-bench lineup. The reason I'm bringing this up is because now the local guys are saying it. And if you have dudes on the beat in Detroit who are as plugged into this team as anybody can possibly be without being directly employed by the team, when they're starting to suggest that something is fucked up here and that maybe he's doing this on purpose, got him. Got his ass. And usually I think when I would talk about something like this, I would try to be vague, because I don't want to like ruffle feathers, and I don't want to ruffle feathers, but we can just call it what it is, right? I would say that these beat reporters probably have a better relationship with Troy Weaver than they do with Monty Williams in year one as a head coach. Because historically, that's something that sucks about being a beat reporter is, when there's a regime change, new ownership, whatever it is. When new management gets in the building, it sucks when you've spent years, cultivating a relationship with certain guys just to see them go. And hey, such is life. It comes with the territory of the job that there's this, this constant turnover. And like, again, it's just part of what it is. These guys know Troy, and Troy knows them better than they know Monty Williams right now. What do we know about Troy Weaver and Monty Williams? Troy Weaver didn't want him. He wanted Kevin Ollie. Shout out to the Brooklyn Nets, right? I don't think we would be hearing from local guys that, is Monty Williams trying to get fired on purpose? If the call wasn't coming from inside the house. Because that is a dangerous thing to say on like a public scale when you know that people within the organization have eyes on the shit that you're doing and the shit that you're saying. You don't want to damage relationships and, create this irreparable, not mend, but this, because that's not, what's the word I'm looking for? You don't want to create this void, right? So I only say this to say, again, I think the call is coming from inside the house, and I don't know if this is like Troy being like kind of green lighting, like, yeah, go ahead and say some shit. Because are any of us going to be shocked if by the end of the year Monty's not the coach? Maybe you'll be a little bit shocked because, wow, you really paid him all that money just to kind of have to eat it after a year, and, now who has egg on their face? The real question is, who wants to come in next? We've seen it in the NFL. Teams don't want to go to the Panthers because ownership is just too involved. We just saw it with Ben Johnson and the Commanders, although that ended up being such a he said fucking thing. Clearly, the Commanders and Ben Johnson just didn't like each other, and that's all it needed to be, and it got way too ugly. But some of the stuff that came out was like the owners were just too hands-on, right? I think it was Josh Harris. That's the owner, right? The new one. Just too hands-on. If I'm a head coach and I'm looking at Detroit, I'm thinking, if Tom Gores and fucking Arn Tellem want to like meddle with all this shit, like I don't want to be involved. If the GM who was hired to like run this team from like a, in a basketball perspective, if he can't even do his fucking job without the owner getting his hands in some shit, like I'm not interested in that, right? It's not uncommon for that. I don't know who they're going to go after, but I would just hope that if Monty does get fired, whenever that does happen, even if it's not Troy Weaver who's still the GM, let the fucking general manager do their job. And stop trying to insert yourself where you don't belong. You're a businessman, not a basketball mind, Tom Gores. A bad businessman at that. Here's why I don't trust Tom Gores. If I don't trust you as a CEO, if you're not on the spectrum at least a little bit. Right? Because otherwise, I'm just going to assume that you're like a fucking criminal, which, I don't know if you've looked at Tom Gores' track record. Sneaky criminal of the year. Right? Sneaky criminal of the decade. Sneaky grifter of the year. Scam of the week, Tom Gores. What else has been going on in Pistons land? We're all kind of on board that however much money Fontecchio wants, he's going to get that, right? I don't know what that contract looks like. If this was a couple years ago, do you give him like 3 for 18, 3 for 21, somewhere in there? Accumulative, that's over 3 years, not 21 a year, 18 years. That's fucking insane. This guy's not going to get that much money. But whatever he wants, hey, I'm not the cap guy. I don't know what these guys are going to get. Pay him because he's a shot maker. I think in a lot of these nights, you talk about the all-bench lineup. I think in a lot of the nights that he's played, I think technically if you just looked at plus-minus, you'd be like, wait, so he hasn't been... It's like, no, he actually has been impactful, though. The other thing that people are loving to talk about lately, for good reason, by the way, is that Cade just can't get to the line. He did against Chicago, thank God. I think we're starting to maybe see that go in the right direction. You make enough of a stink about it, publicly, which Cade just hasn't done, and that was kind of... He goes to the press after we play a game the other night against the Knicks, and he was probably the most candid that he's ever been. And he's like, I don't know what I have to do. Like, I don't know if I have to start bitching to the refs, which is something that he just doesn't do. He's like, I don't know what it is, but I'm playing the game the right way, and I'm just not getting these calls. And other guys are getting calls for, like, a lot less foul-worthy shit. You know what I mean? The first episode here on the Coping Hour ever, one of the points that I made was, I don't know if it's Bogdanovich, I don't know if it's Alec Burks, but one of these vets and obviously both of those guys are gone now, but one of these vets is going to have to teach these guys how to flop. I don't know who it's going to be, because it's an issue that has plagued Detroit for years. We just haven't had a guy who can get to the free throw line. It's the reason that the Blake Griffin trade felt like it made the most sense, not just because he was a name who would, you know, sell tickets and drive people to the arena and could win you a few games here and there, maybe get you into the playoffs. He did. But it was also a guy who could get to the line, and that's just something that we didn't have, right? Even Jeremy Grant, I don't know, maybe the numbers would suggest that he did, and it's just my memory that's wrong. For as physically as he played, didn't get to the line like that often, right? And even if he was, it's like, well, we didn't have anybody else that could. Cade goes like 2 games where he scores like 80 total points and just doesn't shoot a single free throw. That just can't happen. It just can't happen. You know, it starts in this game against Orlando, which really the only thing to say about that is Paulo did travel. It's okay, Magic fans. It's okay. Paulo's really good. You guys are on a better track than we are. You guys have figured it out faster than we have, and I'm happy for you guys. But we can call a spade a spade. That was a fucking walk. You're going to point to the last 2-minute report, and the refs were like, no, actually, he established a pivot foot, and then he did all this. Oh, he just fucking walked is what it was. It's fine. Okay? But we got horse shitted out of that game, and then the Pistons go to New York, and we're in the Garden. Dante DiVincenzo decides that he's a fucking free safety and tackles Asar Thompson on the sideline. Should have been a loose ball foul. Pistons go on to lose the game. Last 2-minute report comes out. The refs actually owned it, by the way. Rare. And that's the last 2-minute report thing usually is bullshit, and I usually don't even like looking at it because you're telling me the refs association aren't just going to back their guys. More often than not, they're just going to double down on the shit that they originally called on the floor so that they don't look like an asshole. I give them a lot of credit. Fuck that, I don't. Dante DiVincenzo literally tackled him. Literally tackled Asar Thompson. If they would have said to us that was a clean play, I'm protesting the rest of the fucking season and I'm not watching anymore. Because that's a joke. That's a product that I want nothing to do with. And it took national media being like, what the fuck was this? It took New York media, newspapers the next morning being like, we don't know what the hell that was, but we'll take it, right? A win's a win, but they still spent, they used actual ink in those headlines to still shit on how bad the Pistons are despite us getting cheated out of 2 consecutive fucking wins. Insane. Monty Williams actually goes up in the post-game presser, shows more fire and more heart than he has literally all season. Took us 50 games to get to a point where Pistons fans could actually look at Monty Williams and be proud that he was our coach. And we can be honest about it. I've seen people try to be like, oh, don't let Monty Williams off the hook for this. He's still... But we know he sucks. We know he can't be the coach, but not everything has to be this fucking absolute where it's like, because of how bad he's been this year, that means nothing he does is good. Oh, where is the bar? On the floor, motherfucker. But it's okay to take a step back, fucking breathe, and be like, good for him. Good for him for standing up for his guys, and good for him for being a little bit fucking upset. For once. For once. You're getting paid all this goddamn money to throw all these games, and for once you actually went up there and gave a shit. That mattered. Thank you, Monty Williams, for that. But otherwise, fuck off. Like, you're just not my coach. I cannot believe the swindle, how hoodwinked we feel right now. You also have Adam Silver coming out talking about, yeah, we're going to have to look at some stuff to, you know, maybe make the NBA a little more of a, sort of swing the pendulum back in the defensive direction. I'm telling you, man, 3 in the key's got to go. That's got to be it. Eliminate 3 in the key. How much does that contribute to it? I don't know, but I think it'd be fun. If we want to get real crazy, we'll do the goaltending thing. Hand checking is a lie. It's not a real thing that you can bring back. Players already do it. Luka said that. JJ said that. JJ's like, oh, you should bring back hand checking. Luka was like, they already do it, motherfucker. They just, like, don't call it. I also just don't believe that adds that much to what... I just don't think it adds as much as people think it will, because a lot of what makes these offenses good isn't like individual ball handlers. It's shit that they're doing off the ball. And I don't think hand checking is really going to fix guys being able to find these soft spots and sort of thread the needle on these passes. Like, I just don't think it's going to do that much. And you could say the same thing about 3 in the key. I don't know, right? It's going to have to be a lot of things that you sort of put into this mixing pot of shit that we can do to get sort of defense back on the right track and lower the point totals in some of these games. It's not going to be one rule that does it, right? I think if you had to do one rule, that would really change things. If you could only do one, do you eliminate goaltending? Is that what it would be? I'm not saying that they should do that. I'm saying, but if you could only pick one, that would kind of level the playing field a little bit. Maybe it would be that. But you just look at Adam Silver's tenure so far, and it's weird because it's subconsciously, I don't know what it is, man, but I've just always kind of been a defender of his. I'm just like really in his camp. I don't know why. I don't know what it is about him. I just think he's a guy that I want to root for because I think it's just him being a lawyer, even though I historically hate lawyers. I would rather be in a room with 100 cops than one lawyer. And what does that say, right? And I hate cops. So it's like, I just don't like lawyers because they actually know how to communicate. Like, at least a cop could be dumb. You know, a lawyer, you got to be kind of smart. And the way that they can communicate, the language that they know how to use, Adam Silver does this shit. So whenever he gets up on a podium, it's really easy for me to, like, find him endearing. I don't know why. But then you really start to break it down and you kind of think about certain directions that the NBA has gone and certain positions that they've taken and certain issues that they simply don't know how to resolve. You know, turning the league into more of a spectacle than it's, at least attempting to turn it into more of a spectacle than it's been probably ever. Something that David Stern would fucking roll in his grave if he knew that we were doing the in-season tournament, honestly. Shit like that, like, oh my God, you guys were drafting teams for the All-Star game? He'd throw up. I don't know, maybe this is worth doing, you know, really doing my research on it, maybe making a full-length video on it, doing just a segment on it. But I think the conclusion that I'm going to arrive at, if I ever do that, on Adam Silver's tenure as commissioner of the NBA so far, is he kind of had like a Michael Carter Williams peak. Michael Carter Williams goes out in his first game with the Sixers, and was it almost a quadruple-double that he put up on those process Sixers? And then for the rest of his career was just the MCW that we kind of knew him to be, like had a game here and there, but hell no. Hell no, Michael Carter Williams. Hell no. Adam Silver had been on the job for like 2 weeks when the Donald Sterling stuff happened. Immediately everybody was on board with him because he banned Donald Sterling for life. Something that I've said this before. Do we give him too much credit for that? You banned a guy who was like horrifically racist. There were two options. You don't do anything or you ban him for life and you force him to sell his stake in the team. Those were the options. And you want to talk about where was the bar? Whatever. He did the right thing, okay? Michael Carter Williams, Adam Silver, it's the same picture. Let's move on. The email to the show is copingoursubs@gmail.com. Spelled phonetically, the email will always be available in the description of wherever it is that you listen to this podcast. Email comes into us from Matt. Matt, welcome to the show. Subject line, Laker fan coping with LeBron leaving next year. Congrats on 30 episodes and love the show. I'm a lifelong Laker fan, but I really got into watching and understanding basketball more during the pandemic/bubble playoffs. Since then, the roster around LeBron and AD has turned over almost every year, and the way the front office makes decisions has felt reckless. Them not making a move at the trade deadline was pretty out of character, and it made me believe in the possibility of LeBron leaving a lot more. As devastating as this would be, part of me is indifferent to it. It feels like LeBron and AD are so good that it enables the front office to be dysfunctional. I don't have faith that them throwing things at the wall and seeing what sticks is going to culminate in a title in the next 1 to 3 years. I'll always appreciate the title and always view LeBron as a Laker legend for honoring Kobe in such a fitting way and giving the city a win when it needed one. Unfortunately, the fact he didn't retire a Laker says a lot about how this will probably go down in history. How badly did the Lakers fumble the LeBron era? The last sentence there confused me. Keep up the great work. Thank you for the email, Matt. Really jumped in at a good time, didn't you? Started watching the Lakers the year that they won a championship. Oh, all right. Okay. Ironically, the year of a championship that people, while the 10-year-olds on the internet, I don't know why I spend so much time caring about the people who don't validate like LeBron's championships. I'm sorry, the bubble championship or Kevin Durant's championships, because it really says a lot about whose opinions I care the most about, which is apparently like 15-year-olds on the internet, which there is some truth to that, not to hijack this email and make it about me, but I think there is some truth that as somebody who has been terminally online in the past, I do value what those people are saying for some reason more than like a normal person. It's like the same way that I am always in the loop on like what the QAnon flavor of the week is, like whatever conspiracies they're floating out there. Like the most recent one is like if you go to a cemetery and stand in front of a tombstone and like turn your Bluetooth on, it'll like spaz and your Bluetooth like won't work because the dead bodies. It's something like, I don't remember how it works. Let's get back to the damn email here. Did the Lakers, have they fumbled the LeBron era? Has Rob Pelinka fumbled the LeBron era? No. I mean, yes, but the long and short of it is you got a championship, and that's why he came there, right? That's why Anthony Davis went there. That's why they did everything they did. If I could look back, the two trades that stick out, Russell Westbrook should have never have done it. Handicapped themselves in a way that just, and I think the worst part about that was actually the second trade I was going to mention was what the Lakers punted on in order to do the Russell Westbrook trade with Washington. They were originally trading, I don't remember really much about it, but Kuzma was supposed to go to the Kings, and the shit that they were going to get in return, like the Lakers would have still had somebody left over. Was it KCP? They would have still had somebody left over to move out and like do something with. They instead punted on sending Kuzma to the Kings so that they could send him to Washington and get Russell Westbrook. I believe that's how that all went. That will go down as like the biggest, that's where it ended. That's when they stopped taking things seriously. I do semi-agree that it was a little uncharacteristics of the Lakers to not do anything at the deadline, but I think that was just Jeannie and Rob and even LeBron calling it what it is. It's over, right? If not this season, if it's not over just this season, which I think is all they're saying, just in general, it's over. I'm really bearing the lead here. How mad can you really be at Rob Pelinka? You can't, because it is very, very well documented that we love to make, jokes about LeBron, like being the general manager of whatever team he's playing on. As the years go on, he's like more and more involved in these personnel moves. But it's not a joke, though. It's just not a joke. That's actually how it works. He'll walk into the office and he's be like, go get this guy. Like, what about this guy? I really like this guy. And Rob will be like, no, I think we're going to do this instead. And LeBron's like, no. So you're kind of at the mercy of whatever he wants to do. And sometimes, you accidentally your way into doing something good. And more often than not, it feels like they accidentally their way into, crashing and burning. So that sucks. Is the bar for LeBron to win another championship in Los Angeles? That's just crazy. It just can't be. There's a report that just came out. Wasn't it from, I think it was from Windhorst, which actually leads me to believe that there actually might be some merit to it. Because if Windhorst reports on something LeBron related, I tend to believe it. Like, this is the guy who, when Windhorst like really burst onto the scene when LeBron was in Miami, like when he would show up on like the Jump or the Countdown, whatever, the pregame show was, his Chiron would say, it was like Brian Windhorst has written 2 books on LeBron James. Like bullshit like that. Like that was just his whole deal, was he loved LeBron. Okay. Like him and Nick Wright were kind of one and the same, but that's not really Nick Wright's business, is like that sort of reporting and journalism and shit. He just kind of talks into a microphone all day. Both good at their job in their own right. No pun intended. But that's like what Brian Windhorst does. And he just the other day was like, LeBron wants to secure a multi-year deal in Los Angeles worth like 9 figures. Are we over this? Is it just me? Hasn't he spent more time in Los Angeles than he did in Miami or than he did in his second stint in Cleveland? I'm so bored of it. I'm so tired of it. And at this point also, who cares? But I remember when he went to LA originally, like, sure, it was cool because, like, wow, LeBron, Los Angeles, wow, he's a Laker. Like, now he sort of joins that pantheon of all-time greats who have played with the Lakers. Like, that's cool. But it sucked because now he's going to the West Coast, and I'm going to have to stay up all night to watch him. And he was, really at the peak of his powers when he went there, and it just felt like it sucked. As the years have gone on, I mean, hey, he's won a championship. He's shown us that he's still good. He broke the all-time scoring record. He's broken a myriad of other records, like whatever. You also have to think of it through the lens of, does it make sense? You know, he's really sort of rooted himself in Los Angeles in a way, and his family specifically is where I'm going with this, that it does make sense that he'd want to stay there, you know, for a while. You look at a kid like Bronny, you know, for all intents and purposes, should probably stay one more year at USC, really kind of steer this thing back in the right direction. This mock draft comes out and Bronny is like a second-round pick, which is like reasonable. That's like way more realistic than people lying saying he's a lottery pick. Holy shit. Stop. And then LeBron's like, oh, how about you guys just let the kid be a kid? And does it LeBron like doing a real life? We're all trying to find the guy who did this. Like, you're the motherfucker who put all these expectations on him in the first place. And no, people haven't helped. You know, people haven't really helped by feeding into that. But like, you started it. And I don't, yeah, sure, it's his son. What else is he supposed to say? I don't know. Like, don't put the target on his back. Like, just let him be a kid and not talk about how fucking awesome he's going to be and how he could play in the NBA right now if he really wanted to. A real thing LeBron was talking about like 4 months ago. Like, dog, you helped do this, okay? So he should probably stay there for an extra year. You know, you have Bryce, I'm pretty sure, still playing at Sierra Canyon. I would be really disappointed if he stayed in Los Angeles. And I think I'm straying way too far from the email here. You know, in terms of how much you can blame them. Because Jeannie Buss and the Buss family's whole thing with the Lakers has historically been nobody treats superstars the way that the Lakers do. And the hoops that we'll jump through and the way that we'll bend over backwards, we'll do these Bikram yoga stretches to make sure that you're comfortable, to make sure that you're thriving in the best situation that you can possibly be in. Kobe signed an extension really late in his career that was probably the worst extension that we had seen in a considerably long time. Like, nobody agreed with it, but it was just on the merit that he was Kobe. You know, and that was, again, the Lakers sentiment of like, we take care of the stars here. This is what we do. So I don't think it should surprise anybody if this does end up happening. It should maybe surprise you a little bit. Because it's like, oh, so you're not going to play with Bronny? Let's say he does come out this year, right? And then the Lakers sure as shit aren't going to draft him. If they do, I'm going to throw up. You want to talk about putting a target on that kid's back? Do not. If you're the Lakers, you can't. You just can't draft this kid. Please don't do it. But then what's the alternative is like you're picking in the, let's say he does fall to the second round, which if the draft happened today, he would. I don't know if he would get drafted. He would, because of the reality that wherever he goes, LeBron might follow. So that's how you end up with a team like Detroit, a team like Washington, a team like Charlotte, you know, with that late second round pick, just kind of like, oh, we could take a chance on this kid. Maybe LeBron will come. You know, is that technically better? Yeah, actually, I would say it is. If you put Bronny in some like in the NBA adjacent of like Siberia. Is that technically better for his development? I think it is. I'm trying to think of a player in recent memory who was kind of the same, where it was like they just need somewhere. Like Lonzo going to the Lakers was just brutal. It was just brutal. It felt awesome at the time. It was really, really exciting at the time, and it felt like it was happening. And then you remember that first game, Pat Bev comes out, locked his shit up. Lonzo Ball was in a suitcase that entire game. It's also crazy to look back on it and realize that Lonzo was playing in like, I don't even know. You can't even make fun of him and call him Skechers. Like what the ZO2s that he was playing in. Holy smokes, dude. I realized this in real time. Weren't the ZO2s like $500? So you're telling me the Trump shoes, the Jan 6s that he just came out with, those gold fuckers, those were only $4. The ZO2s, the big baller brand Lonzo Ball sneakers, cost more money than the MAGA ones? Huh? That's insane. Do they still make stuff? I'll never forget the one time I saw a dude wearing like a real big baller brand shirt in the wild. And this was like the peak of like, you know, when like Ball and the Family was on every week and, you know, LeVar was everywhere. There hasn't been a documentary on him yet. And if there has, it was some low-budget bullshit that does not count. That doesn't count. Are we waiting for the kids to be done? I mean, LiAngelo's cooked at this point. You know, former Detroit Piston legend LiAngelo Ball. The worst take I had was I swear to God, I thought he was going to be the best one. I thought LiAngelo was going to be the best one. I didn't really know where LaMelo was going to be, and I didn't know. We also just didn't know he was going to get as big as he did. Do you guys remember when he like went to Lithuania and you just didn't really hear from him that often? You didn't really see him a ton because he was in fucking Lithuania. And you remember him as like this like little buck-toothed kid, and then they just show him one day and he's like 6'6". You're like, what? Huh? LaMelo Ball just like hit a growth spurt that like you couldn't believe. Oh, okay. Lonzo, the footage from him recently would suggest that he's alive and that he can walk up and down stairs, he can sit up and down, and he can actually move pretty well. We'll see how that pans out. But I'm no more LeVar, I guess is where I was going with that, is we just haven't heard from him in a few years, which I think is good. I think he had his time in the spotlight. Somebody very clearly had a conversation with him. Would that have been maybe Magic or something? Probably around the time that Lonzo and Kuzma were beefing like every single day. Kind of like they were, you know, like they were boys, but also kind of not really. Like it did get a little real a few too many times. And the boiling point of that was when Lonzo Ball came out with a diss track called Kylie Kuzma. Kind of hard, actually. Like, I still have listened to it from time to time. It's not bad. I remember on the plane down to Puerto Rico a couple months ago, I was listening to it. Who are you without ZO2? Something, something, like just a dude with a bunch of tattoos. Bar. Magic Johnson heard that shit, and he went down to the locker room, smacked him upside the head, knocked this shit off. And then it was like a year later that Magic just kind of like started quiet quitting on the Lakers, and then one day just she's like, I'm not gonna be there. I'm out of here. Like, I'm gone. Bye. Did that answer the email? Let's move on. I'm having such a hard time figuring out where to put the camera when I like don't have stuff on the wall, and like the framing of it is just bad. So if you do use this as a visual experience and not just an audio experience, I apologize for that. We're going to jump into a segment here where, look, this is very famously not a Victory Lap podcast. I hate when people are like, look at how right I was about this thing. Cool. Like, I'm just a guy. I don't need people to think that I know what I'm talking about. If you end up agreeing with something, like, usually we're better off that way. Because if you disagree with something, usually I just roll my eyes at the comment and I'm like, you're an idiot. Had a guy the other day he's like, I think you're being really apathetic towards Jordan Poole. Like, oh, he was scapegoated and blah, blah, blah. Shut the hell up. Shut up. Shut up. If there's anybody in the league who I'm allowed to be apathetic towards, it's the guy who got punched in his fucking face by his teammate, and then everybody was on their hands and knees begging for the video. And then TMZ pays like $75,000 for the video. They release it, and everybody's cheering. Everybody is like standing up on their desk at work, like fucking raising the roof that this guy got punched in the face. Okay? He's an asshole. And he got benched by the worst team in the league. Something that I can actually work closer to being able to say. By the way, now that as of this recording, by the time this comes out, maybe the standings will have changed a little bit. But as of this recording, Pistons just won last night against the Bulls. We have the same amount of wins as the Wizards. Huh. What happened to not being that team, Kyle Kuzma? And I like Kyle Kuzma, by the way. It's not even an anti-Wizards thing. It's an anti-Jordan Poole thing. And then just, you know, sort of by association. And what has the experience for the Wizards been this year? If I'm Denny Avdia, how many times can I run as fast as I can into like a wall of defenders before I realize that it doesn't work? Before I realize that I'm not Giannis? It works for Giannis. Sometimes it even works for like Karl Anthony Towns. It doesn't work when you're Denny Avdia. For some reason, I give Kyle Kuzma like just a perpetual pass to do whatever he wants. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because he's a Flint native. He's just a Michigan guy. And so I just, you know, through virtue of that, like through virtue of the association of my same home state, I'm just like, yeah, like no notes, Kyle Kuzma. You have free reign to do whatever you want. I think it's because he sort of embraces the memeage that he is. And like his ego isn't inflated because he was on like some really successful Lakers teams. He's just kind of like, I'm just here to hoop, just here to have a good time. He's not like, my legacy is secured, bitch. Shut up. I didn't like, maybe I'll bleep that out. I'm not going to bleep it out. I'm a grown-ass man. It's not a Victory Lap podcast is where I was going with this. But it is a platform for me to make fun of myself. I will tar and feather myself from time to time, folks. Don't think I won't. And I thought it would be fun to kind of go down memory lane, look at some drafts from the previous years, and talk about some guys that I was just dead wrong about. For better or for worse. Got 5 players. One of them I was wrong in the sense that I thought they were going to suck, and it turns out they're awesome, and I'm devastated. 4 of them are I thought they were going to be awesome, and they sucked. So let's save the one who ended up being good for last, and let's go down the list, talk about some guys who I thought were going to pan out. Let's start with James Bouknight. Bouknight? Bouknight. 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 We're going to call him James Bouknight. Coming out of UConn, I knew this guy couldn't pass. I knew this guy couldn't defend. I knew this guy couldn't rebound, but I knew he could score at a really, really high clip. And that's what I was excited about, because I was like, if you put him next to LaMelo Ball, you know, you put him next to this premier setup man, and maybe it's reductive to call LaMelo a setup man because he's a lot more than that. But at the end of the day, I knew he wasn't going to play big minutes, but I thought he was going to play impactful minutes. And then who was it his rookie year that was the coach? And I think he got fired like a year later. Borrega? Was it James Borrega? Borrego? I think it was James Borrega. James Borrego. It's one of those two. He was just like in the doghouse, and I thought that's all that it was, because he hated playing rookies. That just like wasn't his MO. That's just not what he liked to do. So I thought that's all that it was, is that Bouknight just had to get some tread on those tires, you know, log some minutes, kind of carry the water a little bit in practice, you know, bring some Chick-fil-A on the plane, you know, sort of establish himself as a guy who's been in the league for a little bit, and then the minutes would come. No, it turns out he just couldn't. I was right about him not being able to defend and not being able to rebound and not being able to pass. It turns out he just couldn't really score either. And then as of, what, like 3 weeks ago, he's just not in the NBA anymore. Suffered the same fate as Killian Hayes, getting released, and then teams are like, not right now. We're not interested right now. Maybe in the summer when we need to fill some roster spots. Like, Bouknight and Killian Hayes are the two dudes who, if there is another, like, not Kevin Durant-esque trade, but like, remember when the Suns they were just after the Bradley Beal trade, and they were anybody with a pulse who was willing to be paid for like $500,000 for the season, you were like, you got a uniform. That is, I think, the only way that these two dudes get on a roster. Unless the Spurs look at Killian and are like, okay, like Popovich is like, I think we can do something here. I think that's really the only other, you know what I mean? Dead wrong about Bouknight. Moving on to the next player, KZ Okpala. He had the size, man. He had the frame. You had this wing. I think he went to Stanford. He was crafty, dude. And he could defend. He could defend multiple positions in college. And I thought that the length that he had and the versatility that he showed, like, he had a weird stroke, but like, he could shoot. He could really shoot. And when he got drafted, I'm thinking to myself, like, you know, this he culture shit and going out, maybe that's where he was doomed, is getting drafted by Miami isn't what you want to do. You want to be an undrafted free agent who gets signed. So it would have been better off if he didn't get drafted by Miami, but instead slid and, well, didn't get drafted at all. And then afterwards, Miami was like, hey, you want to hop on this summer league team? Maybe that's what he needed. I thought he was a dog, and he just wasn't. And I don't really say this word lightly, because I think, well, I say I don't want to disrespect anybody. I just called Jordan Poole a bitch. I just thought KZ ended up being really soft. I just thought he ended up being way too soft, and it didn't pan out. He ended up going to Sacramento, I think, for like 4 games. That was it. His career high was like 17 points, I think, at one point, though, and I remember that so vividly, because I thought it was really about to start happening for him, and then it just never did. Moving on, you know who another one was? Jordan Bell. Damn. Kind of just ended up being a really good bench mob guy, and that was it. Was he the one that threw was it a lob to himself off of the backboard when the Dubs were up by like 40, and then Steve Kerr got pissed? Was that him? Or was it not to himself, but it was something like that, where he late in the game kind of broke one of those unwritten rules. And I thought, because I think he went to Oregon, he was one of those dudes who was just violent around the rim. He kind of played like a more coordinated Thanasis Antetokounmpo, like a little bit, right? And I thought you just bring in this high-energy guy. I thought what Kevon Looney and his career has evolved into with Golden State, I thought it was going to be Jordan Bell. And I cannot believe Kevon Looney. Not that I can't believe he's still in the league, but if you told me, because he got drafted, I think it was the year that Golden State won their first championship in 2015. I think Kevon Looney was their pick that year. I was like, this guy's cooked in like 2 years. Like, he's not seeing the end of this first contract. There's no way. Turns out it was actually Jordan Bell who didn't see that. I don't think he got more than 2 contracts in the NBA. Just didn't end up working for him. He just didn't do anything. Like, again, just like a really good bench mob guy. And that was kind of it. Kind of like Dante Jones. Although that's not even nice to say about Dante Jones because he at least had a career. Like, he evolved into a really good bench mob guy because he put in the time and, like, actually became a vet and that was just too old and couldn't do anything. But Dante Jones, sneaky was a problem at Duke. But that was also way before my time. If you'll indulge me, and I can put in a Detroit Piston in here. You want to hop into this time machine with me. Hop into the TARDIS. Matt Smith's TARDIS was probably my favorite. The David Tennant one, I think, is sort of the one that people will think of. But, well, how many did Matt Smith have? I think, did he have 2 or did he have 3? Like interiors. You guys don't know. Most of you are going to be like, what the fuck are you talking about? Doctor Who. Anyways. Pistons go to the playoffs in 2016. We get swept by Cleveland. Cleveland goes on to win the championship. After being down 3-1 against Golden State. Pistons don't have a lottery pick. Whoa, for the first time in like probably like 8 years. Whoa. We draft Henry Ellenson. Versatile power forward from Marquette. And you're thinking to yourself, whoa, did they just pair a dude with Andre Drummond who can shoot threes? Like, is Reggie Jackson going to have a dude who he can do this like pick and pop, I don't know, can Henry Ellenson, like, even pull from, like, 15? He could. Or so we thought. And then it turns out, much like Jordan Bell, he just couldn't move, like, at all. He just couldn't move around at all. I think he also had some weird injury problems. Spent most of his time with, were we still the Drive at the time? Yeah, he would have been with the Drive at the time. He spent a lot of time in Grand Rapids. I don't even really, it was so far removed from it. I just remember thinking, I remember draft night so vividly being like, whoa, Henry Ellenson, like, I can get on board with this. And then you saw him play like 15 minutes. You're like, what the fuck is this? And then he was out of the league. He went to New York for a little bit. And then after that, I think he went to Toronto. Did he spend a little bit of time in Brooklyn too? Or am I just conflating the Knicks and the Nets? I swear to God he did. Maybe he didn't spend time in Toronto and he was just in Brooklyn because there's no fucking shot that Henry Ellenson played for 4 NBA teams, but he definitely might have. Moving on to the last guy, a player that I was like, he stinks. Don't buy into the hype. Don't fall for it. Turns out I was the one who was the idiot. Turns out everybody was right to be excited about him. Turns out in his rookie season, quote unquote, technically, he just became the first rookie to ever put up 100 blocks and 100 three-pointers in a single season. And by the way, there is still like a quarter of the season to go. Still like 20 to 25 games left in the season. Chet Holmgren. Yep. I didn't believe it. Part of it was a frame thing. Part of it was a visual thing. Aesthetically, I was like, he just looks gross. I'm just not into it. The old footage of like him versus Victor Wembanyama, when it was like Team USA versus Team France, like the under-17 games that they would do. Dog, it was like watching 2 skeletons like try to box each other out. It was disgusting. Like, if there was no audio anywhere else and you just heard these 2 dudes like moving around in the paint, it would have been like Lego bricks slapping together. Remember in those Lego Star Wars games when you would like build shit and there was like that Lego clicking sound? That's probably what it sounds like when Victor Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren try to fucking box each other out. Put some goddamn weight on. Holy smokes. Yeah, Chet Holmgren is sick, dude. Like, he can sneaky do everything. And I think what sucks for him is because this is his rookie year, because he missed all of last season, he's going to lose Rookie of the Year. Like, he just is. I don't care if the Spurs suck. I don't care if the Thunder are actually like the best team in the NBA, or if not, one of the best teams in the NBA. They might end the season with the 1 seed in the West. It just doesn't matter. It's going to be Victor Wembanyama because it's a narrative award, and that's who people have already made up their minds that are going to win. I'm only saying this to say Chet Holmgren would have cleaned house a season ago. Well, we like to think he would have. Maybe that extra year of, being able to, be in the gym and be around these guys, maybe that helped him. I'm just going to be shocked if it happens. That's not saying that he doesn't deserve to, but you look at, like, last year, even Paulo Banchero is another guy I could have thrown on this list of somebody who I was like, yeah, fine. But, like, #1 pick, like, I don't know. I don't know about that. Nope, wrong. Should have gone #1. Good thing that he did. But he would not have won Rookie of the Year if Chet Holmgren was in that class. He just wouldn't have, because we were all kind of scratching our heads by the end of the year. Like, I guess we're going to give it to Paulo. I don't know. Chet Holmgren is he's smooth, dude. He's fluid. He can do it at all 3 levels. He can do it at both ends. He's got a nice little handle. When he goes on these hot streaks, it feels slightly reminiscent, and maybe I'm off base here. There are a few players in the league who, when they go on a heater, it kind of just happens like that. It's really quick, and you'll look at the box score 1 second, and you're like, okay, they got 7 points, like, that's cool. And then what feels like 2.5 minutes later in real time, you look again, and they're already at 16. I think of, like, Pascal Siakam, like a dude who just heats up, like, immediately. Chet Holmgren's got a little bit of that in him on some nights, like when he really goes for it, when he really goes crazy. He just had one the other night where he was like 23, 8, and 7 or something, and it was just kind of everything everywhere all at once with him. I really like him. I'm devastated that I like him. I think it's awesome that Shea has that, that 1-2, or technically that 1-5, 1-4, that you can pair with him. Where are we with Shea winning Defensive Player of the Year? Because it's going to be Rudy Gobert. It will. And I would also argue, it sucks that Shea just won't be in the conversation for, we talked in the last episode about who the face of the league is going to be moving forward once this, the Stephs and the KDs and the LeBrons of the world, once that class is out of here, who is it going to be that we look at? I think it sucks that we're just not going to look at Shea, because I think there is a very compelling argument that it should be him. But I think he's too reserved. Like, he just keeps to himself too much. The only times you really see him are when it's like Fashion Week in Milan, which is fine, because, like, yes, he's first team all league fits. If he retired today, he would go into the League Fits Hall of Fame. Hell, he might go into the Basketball Hall of Fame, since the Basketball Hall of Fame sucks. No, he actually wouldn't. I'm kidding. Yeah, I say all that just to say I love Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I don't love Chet Holmgren, but he's really, really good. Let's move on. As we wrap up today's show, I got to tell you guys about something. So a couple weeks ago, I got Madden 24 for free through EA Play. I just wait until the Super Bowl's over, and then they just kind of punt, and they're like, all right, well, we're on to the next thing, so I just wait until it's free. I think most people wait until it's, like, severely discounted, because we can be honest, unless you are a content creator or you play competitively, if you pay retail price for a sports game in 2024, I'm not going to call you a loser, but you are out of your mind. Because it's like, just play the shit that you were doing before, that you play the game that you already have, and just, like, import new rosters. Wait for it to go on sale, please. Please stop giving these companies $60, or if you're playing on next gen, $70. Please stop doing this. Madden 24, here's the thing. Because I play on PC, Madden, up until this year, up until this most recent iteration, the PC port of the game was technically on, like, a last-gen engine. Madden 24 was the first one that uses, like, this new, like, the PlayStation 5, the new Xbox. What even is the new Xbox? Is that Xbox Series? I don't care. I don't care. PS5. It was always on the last-gen engine until this year. So, like, now it's actually kind of a good game. It almost feels like it's a new game. I don't know. Whatever. That's not even what I'm here to talk about. I like the new Madden. Sorry. I gotta tell you, dude, 2K was on sale on Steam for $10. Also, last gen. Technically, it's a last gen engine. Whatever, I don't care. Holy shit. I would say it was worth $10. Honestly, I would say it was worth $10. Do I suck, or does the game suck? Both are plausible. Both are entirely plausible. I have not had a 2K in like 3 years. Okay? That's why I bought it, because I was like, I kind of want to play basketball. Oh my God, what a miserable game. And I'm not even talking about the microtransaction hell that it's turned into. We all know about that. Yeah, haha, it sucks. You have to pay a bunch of money if you want to be good at the game. We get it. And that's brutal in and of itself. Like, bring back NBA Live and bring back 2K football would be the stance of most people. But then I would also argue to those people, when NBA Live was out, like, you didn't play it. You didn't. Yes, some of you are going to be like, well, actually, I played it. Yes, asshole. Some of us did. But most of us were flocking to 2K because even though the presentation on NBA Live was cooler, like you had ESPN and you had Mike Breen, you had Jeff, you had Mark, like that was cool. It was also just a lot choppier of a game, and like the features in it weren't as fleshed out, and like there were a myriad of things that were just objectively wrong with it, always. So I think when people say they want that back, it's like, well, you want it because it's gone. And you didn't really pay for it when it was here. Whoops. Holy smokes, it's not fun at all. One of my issues right now, just for transparency, the controller that I'm playing on has severe drift stick. It makes it really hard to play sports games, but it makes it almost impossible to play 2K. Because every shot that you take, even if you're like holding the analog stick in a way that like kind of prevents the drift stick in a sense, there's no way to completely combat it and to totally correct for it. So like every shot turns into like a fucking fadeaway or like a sidestep or something. So I created a wing, and what a bunch of bullshit that you don't just like, why do I have to pick the team that drafts me? If I'm doing my career, can I just get drafted? Can you just do it for me? I don't want to pick where I'm going. That's not fun. That's not the same thing, dude. Also, like, why am I immediately getting 36 minutes a game? Why am I immediately... It's damned if you do, damned if you don't if you're 2K, right? Either you flesh it out too much and you make people spend too much time in high school and college, and it's like, can I just get to the fucking league? Or it's like, we just immediately put you in the NBA, you pick what team you want to be on, and you immediately start. Sorry, I actually kind of liked when I had to, you know, fight for my scraps, and I was only getting 7 minutes a game, and I actually kind of had to work my way up. Also, when I didn't have to pick my fucking team. Let me get drafted. What the hell is that? So literally what I do is I just close my eyes and I just like go up and down for like 30 seconds. And then I just, boom, I just hit X, boom. All right, where am I playing? So the first team I got was the Jazz. And then once I figured out with the drift stick issue, I just can't shoot. I was like, I just need to make a new character who's like a point guard and I can only pass. So now I'm a point guard playing for the Pels. And I'm averaging, like, I'm literally just getting like 20 assists a game. If I score, it's because I'm driving and I get to the line. Because it's like, I can shoot free throws with drift stick. Like, that's not a problem. But, didn't mean to bump the camera there. So that's just been brutal. 2K sucks. Sorry, I'm 8 months late to this story. I know we all know this. It's just not been fun. I was having a conversation the other day, switching gears here, was with my brother-in-law. And we were talking about like some of our favorite podcasters and how there's this like rampant issue of very deep-seated insecurity in sports podcasting and on radio and on television. This like incessant need to create a straw man argument. It's a behavioral pattern, by the way, that I have identified in myself in recent months. And I've tried like consciously to kind of break it and to kind of not do it. I think with me, it's a little different. Not that I'm justifying it, but I think just to explain it, I think with me it's because, well, first of all, there is a lot of insecurity. And I think some of it stems from, you know, like 2 years ago around this time, I had my life like just eviscerated by the internet. So now anytime I say something controversial, I feel the need to qualify it with like a, well, and you're going to say that, you know, X, Y, and Z, but here's the thing. And I sort of like pick out what this imaginary argument is going to be from somebody on the internet. And then I counterpoint them before they can even say it, right? It's like, dude, you literally just invented a guy to make up a point. I'm telling you, go, whoever it is that you listen to, right? Whoever it is that you consume, even if it's not like an actual podcaster and it's just somebody who makes YouTube videos. Yeah, I'm not going to name names. really listen to them. Really listen to how they talk about shit and how defensive they get when they are in the room, you know, by themselves, or if it's two of them, if it's three of them, and nobody's pushing back on them. They like calculate the pushback before it actually happens. It's fascinating. And again, I'm saying this as somebody who does it and who's conscious of it every single time they do it. It's like, you know, Russillo actually had a really interesting point on his podcast the other day where he was talking about how social media has really kind of watered down and destroyed a lot of sports talk shows because you end up spending so much time crafting an argument for like one guy, you know, a take that he had on the internet that you disagreed with. And even if 95% of people would just on a fundamental level disagree with that guy, you end up making an entire segment directed at this one person. And you start talking to this like one guy that everybody is just kind of like, huh? Like, you're spending a lot of time on this argument that we already know that you're right about. You know what I mean? I've been guilty of that in the past too. There's a segment that I used to, and I'm not going to say what it was, but there's a segment that I used to do on this show that I stopped doing because I was like, even though I actually got a lot out of it and I thought it was really funny, I realized that from an audience's lens, it just came off as bitter. And it came off as weird. Dog, you know whose videos I've been, speaking of 2K and speaking of YouTubers, you know whose videos I started watching recently for the first time in like 2.5, 3 years? Kenny. King of the Fourth Quarter. Dog, he still got it? I'm not saying I thought Kenny was washed. Like, dog, if anything, he's leveled up in a way that, like, you know, he does TV now. He does First Take. He does, like, NBA on TNT. He does, like, Bleacher Report. Like, Kenny does this. I'm not naive to it. I know that, okay? But as far as the 2K content goes, for how, I don't know how long, that was, like, my prime, I'm eating a meal, and I'm going to put on one of Kenny's 2K videos, right? And the other day, like, I randomly had one pop up in my recommended. I was like, yeah, I'll put this on. For the last week, I've been binging Kenny's videos nonstop. I cannot believe that they're still as entertaining as they are with 2K sucking the way that it does, 2K content being irrelevant for how many years now. Truly the way that dude, and I say this with I respect this guy so fucking much. I respect Kenny so much. The way that he has monopolized 2K content, in 2024, try to start a 2K channel. Try. You can't. I can think of at least 3 YouTubers off the top of my head whose channels have died because they just, A, couldn't figure out something else to do, and B, 2K content just got old to people. And maybe I think just what I just said, I think maybe that's where Kenny kind of sticks out, is that's just not all he does. Like, at the end of the day, the 2K content is like a side hustle to Kenny. You know what I mean? But damn, he's good at it. He's so good at it. And I admittedly don't watch, I don't consume a ton of what he does outside of that anymore. But again, I know that Kenny's that dude. And if I ever met him in person, I'd be like, I just, not as like a businessman, but like as a creative mind, like, dude, you are just, you're in your own lane. Like, it's really hard to be only a basketball YouTuber and amass the following that he has. There are a few YouTubers like that. Like, Jacob is one of them. Rusty Buckets is one of them. Jimmy High Roller, right? He's one of them. Dom2K, he's one of them. I don't know what B-Souls' subscriber count is at. I don't know what his sub count is at. But Kenny is like, to have that many subs as just a dude who just talks about basketball is crazy. For that to be your only thing is crazy, and I respect the hell out of it. Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be today's show. Next time, wow, oh my God, I didn't even think about this. This is the last ever episode in this as the fire truck goes by. This is the last episode in this house. This is the last time you'll ever see it like this. Whoa. That's weird. I almost went the entire episode without mentioning that. I was going to say, because the next time you see me, I'll be in some new setup. And you'll have to give me some grace for like a week or two while I figure out the positioning and stuff. And there's going to be a lot of natural lighting in there, and I'm just worried about how it's going to contrast with the camera. So we'll have to sort of workshop that a little bit. But yeah, the next time you guys see me, I'll be in my new fancy high-rise condominium. Really excited. Maybe there'll be a nice view for you guys. I don't think so, because that's kind of what I was talking about, where the way it's going to contrast, it doesn't matter. If you're watching this on YouTube, be sure to leave a like, be sure to subscribe. Nice little comment for the algorithm. If you're listening to this on Spotify, go ahead and rate it 5 stars. I will catch you guys.
Computers now have primary control.
Beautiful, beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful,
Primary control.
beautiful.